After years of pleading with the gods, the king has finally been born his successor, Prince Ifeme. Joy filled him so much, and the entire kingdom was happy with him. But suddenly, Ezedibia, the chief priest, came with a terrible news. The very news that would shape the future, the terror that was to come, and the entire history of the Amakofia kingdom. The king knew that Ezedibia does not come to the palace except with a very important message from the gods. So he asked anxiously. Ezedibia replied, knowing the message was heavy, Igwe, your son that will take the throne after you will not father a child, and after him the throne will be passed to another lineage. The king's mood shifted immediately. In his mind, he wondered, why does the god give with one hand and take with the other? Years later, the queen called Ifeme, one of the palace maidens, whom she hated so much because she believed the king was interested in her. She told her she would be responsible for taking care of the prince since it was the king himself who appointed her. A few days later, the prince was playing with Olama, the daughter of Ifeme. When Olama won and her mother cheered her up, the prince got angry, asking why she didn't cheer for him instead. Ifeme apologized, but Olama disagreed. He threatened to slap her, and she said she won't play with him again. The next day, she was playing with another person, and the prince came, but she still refused to play with him. Angry, he locked himself in his hut and refused to come out, eat, or even bathe. Ifeme did everything, but he refused to come out, so she went to call the queen. She also came to try, but he still refused. Then she put the blame on Ifeme for starving her son and sacked her from the palace. When she tried explaining that it was just a little misunderstanding between Olama and the prince that made her refuse to play with him, it only made the queen angrier. She punished Olama to serve the prince for the rest of her life. They pleaded, but she refused. So many years later, they had all grown, but Ifeme, the prince, had adopted a very bad lifestyle of sleeping with young maidens in the kingdom. Though Olama didn't like it, she couldn't change him since he was the prince and didn't listen to mates. Olama and Uju went to Amakofia, a neighboring village, on an errand. Uju took her to Afam's place, the handsome man with the biggest farmland in the village, whom every maiden wished to marry. But upon reaching, it seemed Afam had been asking for Olama for a long time, so he was so happy to see her. She was surprised that every maiden's dream man was actually interested in her. Meanwhile, one of the numerous maidens the prince had been sleeping with got pregnant and was brought to the palace by her mother. The prince and his mother refused to accept it and sent them away from the palace. The king heard the noise, but when he arrived, they were already gone. He asked the queen to find and bring the girl back, but she refused. She didn't know what the king knew. He had not told her about the message from the gods when the prince was born. Later in the prince's hut, Olama told him that he couldn't truly say the pregnancy wasn't his because he knew very well that he was responsible. But he said that girl follows different men as well, which is why he had to refuse. She continued, reminding him of how the villagers were beginning to complain. After that conversation, she told him about Afam, saying she liked him and he also liked her. She said he was very handsome and kind. He owned the biggest farmland in Amakofia, and every maiden wanted to be with him. The prince, seeing the excitement in her eye, asked if she truly liked him and if he also liked her again. She said yes, and if he permitted, she could introduce Afam to him. He breathed in heavily, but agreed, saying he gave her his blessing. She was so happy and extremely excited. 2 days later, the prince was with one of his girls when Afam came to visit Olama. He brought her some fruits from his farm. She was so happy to see him. But when the prince noticed, his mood changed immediately. He pushed the girl away and his face was filled with jealousy. Not knowing what to do, he called out loudly, "Ola, where's my bag?" Forgetting the bag was beside him. She replied that the bag was beside him. Then he continued, "Is that why you are standing there like a fool? Come." She used the opportunity to introduce Afam to him, but he just said, "You are a fool." Her mood switched immediately. He continued, "Young man, if you know what's good for you, leave here before I unleash my guards on you." But Afam's response shocked him. "Last I checked, this place connects the people of Amakofia with my people. so you have no right to send me out." When the argument began to intensify, Ola asked Afam to stop and go. He left angrily. No one had ever challenged the prince like that before. When they got into the hut, Olama burst into tears. "You are wicked, selfish, always have been and always will be. If you are what Amakofia will have as king, then there is no hope for our children." But he replied, "Must I remind you that you are talking to me?" She didn't care anymore. "I know that I'm talking to you. I have served you all my life. And just this one shot I have at happiness, you ruined it. How could you?" But then he finally burst it out. "Afam is not a man for you. I've tried to make it work. But no, I grow weak when I hear your name mentioned. I got worried when you are angry. Ola, you are the only true thing I have had since I was born. I've loved you since the day I met you." He apologized for embarrassing her because she had seemed so happy to be with Afam. Olama was speechless, not knowing what to say. They began to have fun together in the palace, playing as lovers, and the prince also stopped sleeping with other maidens. Meanwhile, Afam had tried everything to see Olama, but the guards wouldn't let him in, saying the queen forbade her from seeing anyone. Later that night, Olama asked the prince if he would be able to tell her mother about them when the time came for him to choose a wife. He said he would, but she knew the queen would never agree. The king also finally told the queen about the message Ezedibia brought when Ifeme was born, saying she kept asking what he was always thinking about. Though she was angry at him for not telling her earlier, she didn't believe it, saying they both can agree that her son is not important, forgetting that the ways of the gods are mysterious. After the conversation, she quickly went to the prince's hut. Olama quickly hid beside the bed, knowing the queen wouldn't take it easy seeing her there at that time. The queen wanted him to sleep with as many women as possible and get them pregnant, and she promised she would find him a maiden to marry soon. He was confused, knowing she was the one who had him denied the lady that was pregnant for him. But when he asked, she just told him to do as she said and left. Meanwhile, Olama heard everything. Before he could say something, she got angry and left. Days later, Olama and Uju visited Amakofia to see Afam. But his grandmother said he had gone to another village for a job and wouldn't be back anytime soon. When they came back, Ifeme wanted Olama to allow him impregnate her. That way, his mother would have no choice but to allow him to marry her. But before she could say anything, the queen came in very tense. The king had gotten sick and his condition was not getting any better. He wanted to tell them something very important. The moment had come for the biggest secret to be revealed. The king had mated with a woman before he married, and it had led to a child who might possibly come to claim the throne when he was no more. "Not in my life, father. I'd rather die than see that happening," Ifeme replied angrily. The queen did not know how to react. The king also said he had sent some of his men to do the necessary rite to claim the child, since royal blood does not stay outside. Ifeme stood up immediately. "Then be prepared to lose a son," he said and left angrily. The queen burst into tears. "Then why did you let me feed my son with the hope of becoming king someday?" Ifeme did not know what to do. When he went to his hut, he decided to kill himself, so he drank a poison and collapsed. Thankfully, his mother arrived early and a native doctor was called to heal him. He woke up with Olama by his side. Then he realized how hard it might be for her if he were to die. So he apologized, but kept reminding himself that he was nothing without a throne. Olama said, "What if the so-called child is not even alive, or does not even want to be king?" But he replied, "I must be sure. I don't think anyone will refuse to be king after my father." His mother suggested they seek spiritual help. She told them she knew a powerful man called Ichegu, whose rumor had it that there was no situation he could not change, but no one knew where he lived. He only came to villages once in 2 years, if he had something very important to do. But they could not leave the palace for so long, and no one would be willing to go. Hearing this, Olama offered to go and look for him. even though she believed things should be left in the hands of the gods and their will should be done. The queen was so happy, and though the prince was hesitant, he agreed. On her departure, he told her, give him anything he asked for, as far as it's achievable on earth. Then she left. She wandered in the bush for days without food or water. Then she came across an old man who was struggling with his load. She decided to help him, so she gave him her bag to hold for her. But after carrying the load forward a little, the man disappeared. Her bag, containing the money she was supposed to give to Icheku, was gone. She shouted and searched around, but she could not find the man. She looked inside his load, but it was only leaves. With nothing else to do, she just had to continue her journey with hope only she could explain. She spent weeks in the bush until she landed in a village. She approached a villager and asked about Icheku. The villager said, Icheku is not someone you look for. He comes to you. I also want to meet him so he could heal me and my wife from our sickness, as you can see. She was hungry, so the villager took her home and gave her some food. Then she continued her journey through night and day. Meanwhile, in the palace, the king's sickness worsened, and at last, he died. Back with Olama, after wandering for days, she came across the same man that had taken her bag of money. She grabbed him immediately and wanted to beat him, not knowing he was actually Icheku, the powerful man she had been searching for all this while. She was so shocked and speechless. He told her to sleep so that the next day they could talk about why she has been calling and disturbing him for days. The next morning, she woke up thinking he had gone again, but he came back from the bush with some fresh leaves to take care of her, since she was his guest. But she quickly dived into the reason she came, saying, the prince of my kingdom has been preparing for kingship, but there is a brother who might come for the throne when the king dies. And we want you to change it in favor of the prince, because he is the one the kingdom knows, and he has been preparing for the throne since he was born. Icheku asked with a very tense eye, but he is not the first, and are you asking me to change the hands of destiny? She replied anxiously, No. I can never ask you to do something like that. But I also know that you can make Ifeme king, because he deserves it. We don't know his brother in Amakofia, and it's unheard of for a stranger to come and rule our kingdom. Hearing all this, Icheku told her the prize was great, and it was a fruitful sacrifice, one that she might want to think carefully about. She held her bag of money, saying she was ready to pay anything or sacrifice anything. He told her the woman Ifeme will marry must be willing to sacrifice her womb to make him king. The cool, calm breeze suddenly turned warm and blew over her skin as she stood staring speechlessly. Disclaimer: this video is a movie recap created for entertainment, commentary, and educational purpose. It does not replace the original movie. All clips and images belong to their respective copyright owner, and no copyright infringement is intended. If you enjoy the story, please support the filmmakers by watching the full movie. Link is in the description. At the palace, the prince sent people out to look for Olama in the neighboring villages, since there was pressure on him to get married and ascend the throne quickly before the brother came. But they all returned with no news about where she was. The queen, however, had already made plans for him to marry one of the stubborn elder's daughter, so that the elder would not be an obstacle to him becoming king. Now the prince was faced with choices: betray Olama's love or lose the chance of becoming king. Meanwhile, Olama was also faced with choices: sacrifice her womb or lose the chance of making her lover, Ifeme, fulfilled for life. She remembered the last word he told her before she left the palace: give him anything he asked for, as far as it's achievable on planet Earth. So she finally agreed. Icheku himself was shocked like never before. He did not expect her to make the decision in a hurry. But since she agreed, he prepared the item for the ritual that night. The ritual was performed and it was a long and painful night for her. The next day, she prepared to leave. He gave her a small pot and told her to spread the liquid inside at the entrance of the palace. She realized Icheku could hear her thoughts because she wondered if they would ever meet again, and he replied yes, even though she had not said anything aloud. She was amazed at the gift the god had given him. He directed her on the shortest path home, and she left. Upon reaching Amakofia, she saw many people running with gifts to the palace. So she decided to go straight to the palace. She spread the liquid at the entrance, and upon entering, she saw Ifeme married. The entire village was gathered around them, singing joyfully. When their eyes locked, she ran off immediately, and Ifeme ran after her, leaving his new wife and everyone there. When he caught up to her, she burst into tears. Ifeme, you don't know what I have done for you, do you? You don't know what I have given for you. He stood there frozen and speechless. I don't ever want to set my eyes on you, she said at last before leaving. Now, a meeting was called. A woman came from the neighboring village with the very news that had been their nightmare. She said her grandson was a legitimate son of the king. Though the king had made it clear when he was alive, they still refused to accept it, except the stubborn elder, who was always after the truth and now even angrier because of how Ifeme had run off at the ceremony. Ifeme got angry and insulted the elder, his in-law, very badly, then left. But they told the woman to bring her grandson so they could see for themselves. After the meeting, Ifeme explained to his mother that he was supposed to marry Olama because they were in love, and now everything has turned against him because he married another person. She got angry, saying, so that is why she agreed to go look for Icheku? I will deal with her myself. She went and confronted Olama, raining insults on her, saying she was just like her mother, who tried to seduce the king but did not succeed. And now she also wants to do the same to her son? Ifeme was there, but he could not stop his mother. Olama calmly replied, I slept in the bush for days and weeks without food or water. And upon my return, insults are what I deserve? But the queen replied harshly, even if you were to die for my son, you will never get any recognition. Tears flowed down Olama's cheeks. She could not say anything. Ifeme then stepped in. My father died, and according to tradition, I had to get married in order to be crowned king. I waited for you until I could not wait anymore. But it's not too late. We can still get married. She looked at him with pain in her eye. You never care about me. If you did, you wouldn't have broken your promise to me. Do you know what I did to put your name among those who rule Amakofia? Do you? She turned her back and left in tears. In the evening, he sat outside lost in thought. Since the next day would be a new meeting where the woman would bring her grandson. His wife, Kosiso, came out, trying everything to make him rest his mind, but all to no avail. The next day, they waited for the woman. Ifeme was so impatient, saying he did not know why they must wait for them. When they finally arrived, her grandson was actually Icheku. But they did not know, since they had never seen him before. They only heard of him. They asked him a lot of questions, like what he could use to prove that he was actually the king's son, why he had not visited the king before when he was alive, and what his mother's name was. He gave them a necklace that only the one with royal seed could possess. He also told them no one comes before royalty except when invited. Ifeme stepped in rudely, asking who then invited him now. But he did not answer that. He continued by mentioning his mother's name, and all the elders were shocked, saying that was the woman the king was supposed to marry before he married Ifeme's mother. Finally, the elders concluded on informing Ezedibia, the chief priest, for the necessary rites to crown him king. But he must first get married, since it was their tradition. They offered to bring all the maidens in the kingdom for him to choose one, but he said he would first like to ask Olama's hand in marriage, and if she refused, he would then accept their offer. Ifeme and his mother were shocked and speechless. He looked at him tensely. After the meeting, Icheku went to Olama's hut. She was so happy to see him. He asked her, "What are you doing here all alone?" But she replied sadly, "Don't ask me that when you already know the answer." Then he told her calmly, "Olama, marry me." She looked at him in confusion. "Why would you even want to marry someone like me? My life is already complicated." She burst into tears. "Icheku, please don't complicate my life." She said her life was worth nothing, and he of all people should know that. But he said his life was also not worth anything, so they should spend the rest of their worthless lives together. Meanwhile, Kosiso was so worried since Ifeme did not spend time with her at all. He was always away. The queen calmed her down, saying he had a lot on his mind, so she should not be worried. The next day, Ezedibia came, and immediately he set his eyes on him. He shook immediately, saying, "This is Icheku, the one who solves the impossible." Everyone at the gathering shouted in shock. But Ifeme said everyone knew that Icheku was an old man. Ezedibia disagreed, saying those who had never met him before only thought he was old because of how powerful he is. But this was him. This made the elders even happier because they believed they were blessed to have the great Icheku as their king. Preparations were made immediately to crown him as fast as possible. At this moment, Ifeme and his mother knew that they had nothing else to do. But not Kosiso. She kept talking to her mother to find an alternative since she desperately wanted to be queen. When Olama got to know that Icheku was actually the son that was to come, she was so angry at him, blaming him for everything. She said he knew that he was the firstborn of the king. He also knew that Ifeme would not marry her, yet he still allowed her to make the sacrifice. But Icheku explained that everything was her decision, and even if you were to tell her, it would not have made any difference. It was not actually everything that he could see, as she thought. Sometimes the gate of future opened and he could see, but not always. She was so angry. She then asked why the gods were not already making Ifeme king, since she had already made the sacrifice. He explained that it could still happen if she married Ifeme. Meanwhile, Kosiso's mother had found the secret, that Ifeme could only become king when he married Olama. She told Kosiso that Olama had sacrificed her womb, and if she also wanted Ifeme to be king through her, she must sacrifice something greater. The next day, Ifeme visited Olama's hut, bearing gifts. But when she finally came out, she told him that if he really wanted her, he must send his wife Kosiso away. But he said ignorantly that if he did that, he would not be crowned king since Kosiso had done nothing bad. She said she could now see that the only thing she cared about is the throne. If not, he should choose between the throne and her now. But Ifeme could not. The only thing he said was, "If I choose you now, I risk the chance of becoming king. But if I become king, I will have the right to choose as many women as I please, including you." Olama burst into tears. "If I were you, I would have asked the gods for wisdom instead of the crown, because even with the crown resting on your head, you will have no wisdom to rule." The next day, she accepted Icheku's proposal, saying he was the only man who knew she was barren and still agreed to marry her. Also, he was someone who knew her very well, and that gave her comfort. He smiled, and when he was about to leave, he told her that when he returned, he would tell her something very important. A few days later, the marriage was held in Olama's hut, and it went on smoothly. After 2 days, he was crowned king. But even after they were married, Olama still thought of Ifeme, and since Icheku could hear her thoughts, he knew it. He said he would give her time to get over him before they slept with each other. Then he told her his top secret, that he had never eaten or drunk anything touched by fire before. and that was the reason he had to live in the bush, so no one would mistakenly give him some. Now that he was here, she must make sure no one gave him such a thing, because there will be a great consequence if it ever happened. From that night, she personally oversaw everything he ate, from water to fruits to everything else. Kosiso tried to disrespect her, but she did not take it easy on her at all. She introduced new fair rules and abolished the old wicked ones. She also introduced a new tax policy that was fair enough for the villagers. And she gave tokens to the elders who helped the king in the palace for their continued advice, since they were too old to work. Everyone was happy. Few days later, the king came to invite Ifeme to go hunting. But as he entered, he heard his thoughts saying, "What does this idiot want?" before he even greeted him. Ifeme was shocked when he realized that the king could even hear his thoughts. Olama disagreed with the idea of him going to hunt with Ifeme, but he said Ifeme would not be able to do anything to him. But Kosiso was also worried, saying Icheku could turn him into an animal in the bush. But he said his life was already worth nothing, so he did not care. In the bush, they started bonding really well, until they heard a woman crying. When they ran to her rescue, she was actually pregnant and in labor. The king suggested they help her. Meanwhile, it was late in the palace and everyone was worried. Olama didn't know what to do. They spent the whole night helping the woman, but after delivering, she died, so they buried her. The next day, both wives were worried, even thinking of calling the chief priest, but they returned at last and explained everything. When the queen asked what would happen to the child, the king said he would adopt him if Olama accepted. She agreed with all excitement. Few days later, a young man brought a gift personally to Olama because his father, who was banished, came back after she declared so, except for those banished for murder. When the young man left, her own mother, who had also been banished for years, came back, and she was proud of her. Olama was so proud to have Icheku as her husband. She expressed her happiness to him, saying people gathered at the palace with gifts and food just to thank him for the changes he brought into their lives. Her praises were sung all over the village and even in neighboring villages by her enemies and loved ones, all because of him. He had given her a son, even without a womb, a crown, even without a royal lineage. But even so, he could still not be able to have her all, because her heart was still with Ifeme. She tried to forget him, but Icheku could still feel that her heart was not totally with him. The sacrifice she made for Ifeme even amazed the gods. She talked to her mother about it, and she advised her to be patient so he would come around. Meanwhile, Kosiso could not rest until she became queen. Ifeme confessed that he had worked with Icheku and saw that he was everything he could never be. But she said she would be queen with or without him. Months later, Kosiso finally found a way to be queen. She discussed it with the queen, saying Icheku did not eat or drink anything made with fire, because she had been studying Olama for a long time. So she planned with the queen to heat a small quantity of water and add it to his drinking water. Meanwhile, Ifeme had heard everything. That night, when the king was about to eat, Olama fetched him some water, and immediately he heard the cow. He felt something was wrong, so he hesitated to drink it. When Olama asked what was wrong, he said nothing, but he finally drank it. Then he felt the real shock. Olama asked him again, and even suggested going to call Ezedibia, but at that moment, he knew what was done was already done, so he just wanted to lie down. The next morning, one of the palace maidens was having a stomach ache, and when they went to call him, he was already dead. Olama did not know what to do, how to react. She was totally shattered. The news spread quickly through the village and all the neighboring villages. The news of the great Icheku's death shattered so many people and left the entire village in agony. When the chief priest came and checked him, he found out that he had been poisoned, and they decided they would find the person at all costs. The next day, The elders demanded to question the maiden who last served him at the meeting. But the maiden explained that Queen Olama was responsible for serving and preparing the king's food, and that no one else in the palace was allowed to do so, by the king's own order. Now every finger pointed at her. She explained how she would never and ever think of killing anyone, especially her own husband. But Kosiso kept stepping in at every opportunity, giving reasons why Olama might kill her husband. Ifeme just kept quiet, not saying a word throughout the meeting. The elders concluded on continuing the investigation more spiritually, and fear began to grip Kosiso and the Queen Mother. After all the investigations, Olama was found guilty and was brought to the village square for the entire village to see before she died. When she was asked to say her last word, she cursed the entity the gods represent and the sacrifice she made for love. But when she was about to be taken away, Ifeme finally stepped in, explaining that she was innocent and how he had heard his mother and his wife planning to kill the king. Kosiso denied the allegation, but her father asked her anxiously to tell the truth because they will be going to the shrine to swear. At that point, she realized it was finished for her, so she knelt down begging. Her father was so disappointed. The Queen Mother was also brought, and the villagers beat them very well. In the evening, Olama declared her judgment as queen by banishing the Queen Mother and burying Kosiso alive. Kosiso's father was frustrated and angry at his wife, since she was the one who had fed their daughter with bad advice, and that ended her where she was now. Months later, Ifeme still came to Olama, asking her to marry him because he still loved her and wanted her to rule with him, thinking the crown was now his. She explained everything to him, how she had sacrificed her womb just to make him king, and that the power to become king no longer lay with him. She continued saying she would continue to rule, and when her son came of age, she would make him king. Only then she might consider his offer of marriage. If you'd like to listen to more stories like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for you to be alerted anytime I release a new video. Subscribe, please guys, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to like, share your thoughts, and even suggest a movie to be recapped next in the comments. See you guys in the next one. I love you guys.